everyone, Aidan here at the Trailer. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Hollywood Rack's Destination 4 bike rack and seeing how it fits on the back of our 2021 Hyundai Santa Fe. This is going to be a pretty entry-level platform style bike rack, certainly not all kinds of bells and whistles to it, and there's some things about it that are a little bit clunky, but to get you started in the world of bike racks, especially platform style bike racks, it's going to be one of your better options, and one of my personal favorites at this price point. So you can carry up to 4 bikes with this, and each bike can weigh up to 35 pounds. Makes it pretty versatile for most road bikes and some of your mountain bikes. Not the best option for e-bikes, but you can handle that if you have those e-bikes with a different rack. Now, as far as other types of bikes go, carbon frame is going to be a no-go because it does make frame contact. We've got a padded cradle here with a strap that runs around the frame. That rotates 360 degrees and slides up and down for height adjustment. So for alternative frame bikes, it's going to be just fine. And this bike rack also works really well for kids' bikes. That's a big complaint for a lot of hanging style bike racks, is that they don't work great with kids' bikes, but this one does. So it's a really big selling point for it for me. There is no tilting feature with this, so if you need access to the back of your Santa Fe, you are going to have to get the bikes unloaded. Before I do that though, I do want to point out one thing that might be a potential issue for some people, and that's going to be handlebar clearance. This isn't something we see on every bike rack, but with the way this sits in our hitch, our handlebars do come very close to the back glass here. Now, I tested this out and shook the bike around, and even aggressively shaking it, trying to really get that front tire to move, it's not hitting the back glass, and it never did. So that we've got that going for us. But it does come quite close, and driving around at highway speeds, hitting bumps, things like that, you might see different results than I'm seeing right now just in the parking lot. So it's not going to be everyone's favorite. If you've got really wide handlebars, then you might look out for that. Road bikes I think will be just fine, but to give you a measurement of what ours are, from the center of the bike where it actually attaches out is 15 inches. Measure your own handlebars on your own bike and see how that compares, because if it's any more than 15 inches, you're going to be getting even closer to that back glass. The bike is held in really well though. Aside from that cradle holding onto our frame, we've got 2 wheel straps pulling down and in on the bike, which actually get it pretty solid. We're going to remove those first to remove the bike, pressing in on the gray buttons and pulling those ratcheting straps out. Those are the things that really add a lot of stability, whereas this cradle is the thing that primarily holds our bike upright. It uses that same gray button with ratcheting strap to hold it in. Make sure you're holding onto your bike while you remove that, and then you can just lift it up and away. That center mass does present a bit of an obstacle for you whenever you're loading and unloading. Not too bad though, because it's actually a really low center mass. Some bike racks have these get really tall, but because of the low shape, it's not too bad. And at this point, I like to fold it down. We'll go to this hand knob on the back side, loosen it up, flip this catch plate back, and then this can fold down to either end. I'm going to bring it over here and actually wrap it up with the wheel strap, making sure it doesn't pop back up and bump into our car later. Just like that to hold it down. And at this point we can get some measurements. I'm going to start with our ground clearance first. We've got this reverse U-shaped design, which helps it accommodate larger wheelbase bikes while still working for those kids' bikes. So the lowest point at the back end is actually on the very end. And that's going to be 19 inches from the ground. We have a pretty good rise from our shank, and this bike rack actually does come up as a slight rise throughout the whole thing, getting us a pretty decent ground clearance, something I don't think you have to worry about driving around steep driveways and hills. For the furthest point from the back, that's going to be adding 38.5 inches from our bumper, which for a 4-bike rack is actually pretty solid. We tested some hanging racks earlier today that stuck out further than this, and I do prefer a platform rack to a hanging rack, so the fact that this also gets better clearance is a pretty big win. If you want to leave it in the hitch between rides though, you can fold it up against the vehicle for easier storage. To do that, you've got a clip and a threaded pin at this pivot point here. The threaded pin is really nice because it sort of acts like an anti-rattle device. When you've got it removed, you can just fold the rack up and re-thread it into the newly aligned holes. And because it threads in, it's going to actually tighten up that pivot point and make it a lot more secure. Just make sure to put that clip in on the other side. That's going to make sure that if it loosens up, it doesn't pop out on its own, which it shouldn't. But that gives us a pretty solid folded up structure. And we can get a new measurement from the bumper. Now only sticking out 12 inches. So that's pretty compact. For pulling around into a parking spot or just driving around, it makes this a lot less in the way. One thing I will note though is that it's gonna block your backup camera and your license plate. Probably not completely, because there are good gaps in here where you can still see that license plate and maybe get some view out of the backup camera. I think the backup camera is gonna be pretty hard to use though. Luckily, it doesn't block your back window at all, so you will get visibility out of there. And for the most part, it doesn't block your taillights either. There is a little bit of obstruction right around here, but we still see all this and all that on the outside edges. Moving on down to the bottom though, we've got this working with our 2" by 2" receiver tube. It's going to have an anti-rattle bolt that locks, holding it in there, and that lock core just pops off and is included with some keys. So you can make sure that the rack is locked up to your vehicle when you're not around. It's a side mounted one, very easy to use, and the anti-rattle keeps things solid in the hitch. And when it comes down to picking the right bike rack for you, I always like to go for a platform style rack because I do think they're more accommodating for a wide range of bikes. And if you're looking at a 4-bike rack, this is going to be probably the best value option out there. Some of those hand knobs and things are a bit of a nuisance to use just because it takes a long time to fold that mast down, and it's not everyone's favorite. But for me, I really like it because it's very stable, works with a wide range of bikes, and it does fit pretty well on our 2021 Hyundai Santa Fe. Thanks for watching.
Now we're going to go ahead and take it on our test course. First we'll start with the slaloms. This is going to show the side-to-side action. It's kind of going to mimic the movements that you'll see whenever you're driving down the road normally. Now we'll have the alternating speed bumps. This is going to be more so like the uneven roads and some of that uneven terrain you might be traveling on, and see how it holds up.